Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Tom LaHue. We're going to be looking at Enneagram Type 7 today, known as the Adventurer, the Enthusiast, the Epicurean, and we're going to be looking at the sin of Type 7, which is called gluttony. So let's jump into this information, and before we do, just a reminder, in the description below is a link to my website, tomlahue.com. I do offer Enneagram coaching. You can book a single appointment, or you can book 3 weeks or 6 weeks and more. And my Present to Life coaching program is 12 weeks, where we walk through all the unique things about your personality and help you figure out, what you want in life and how to improve your relationships. And the Enneagram is a great tool to help us know more about ourselves and also the people that we love and are trying to get along with. And it can just be a fantastic lens by which we see the world and to improve our lives and improve our relationships. So if you're tired of all the arguing and not connecting like you used to, or you're having a hard time finding your motivation to go back to work or to get excited about the next step in your life, please reach out to me. And also, there's a lot of different course offerings that I have on my website, on-demand classes and classes that are coming up that are live on Zoom about Enneagram coaching and relationship coaching and all kinds of things related to the Enneagram and self-improvement. I'd love for you to check that out. And I'm going to be looking at my notes today that come from my website. So if you want to look at these notes that I've got in front of me, you can just go to the store tab on my website and click on that, and then you'll see a bunch of ebooks, and one of them is called Shadows of the Soul, and it's a free resource that you can download that has all this information for all 9 types. So if you're interested in that free information, just go to the website. And while you're there, you can join my my Enneagram community to get my newsletter each week. All right, so let's jump into Type 7 and talk about what the sin of gluttony is, what it's not, and how we can minimize its damage in our lives. Because face it, all of us at times can be a little bit of a glutton. Now, when you think about gluttony, most of the time you think about overeating or overindulging in food and drink and those kinds of things. And that could very well be the way this shows up in somebody's life, but it isn't limited to overeating or overindulgence. In fact, sometimes Type 7s might be very focused on health and even be vegetarians or that kind of thing, or vegans. And so they might say, well, I'm not a glutton. Look at me. I'm in good health. I'm in good shape. What do you mean my sin is gluttony? Well, gluttony doesn't just refer to overeating. Characterized by their optimism and high energy and a desire for a variety of experiences. So you might say, like, the need for adventure or the need for novelty or the need to raise the energy or the level of excitement, and feeling very anxious or uncomfortable when things become difficult or painful or the options become limited. The never ever behavior for a 7 is never try to control a 7. Remember, 7's superpower is teleportation, and they'll probably just teleport away from you and maybe not interact with you any longer if you try to limit their freedoms to a great degree. So a deep need to avoid pain and to seek out pleasure or satisfaction in their life. 7s have a hard time being content. And you can start to see where the gluttony is about to come in here. With that difficulty in being content, there's this continuous need for more experiences, more in their collections, more things that exist outside of themselves or experiences that exist outside of themselves in order to feel happy or to feel content or fulfilled in life. So 7s are often the life of the party, the class clown, planning their next big adventure, encouraging you to come along with them on their journeys, and sometimes having a hard time remaining still or being present to life. And so, you might think of 7s as, you might say, well, they don't look like they're an anxiety type. 5, 6, and 7s are in the fear group or the anxiety group. Well, try to make a 7 sit still. I mean, imagine like a junior high classroom and there's a couple of 7s in there, make them sit still, and you'll see the anxiety of, I need to go sharpen my pencil, I need to go to the restroom, can I return my book to the library, I need to go to the nurse's station. This constant need to change their environment, change their situation, and feeling like boredom is painful. The core sin or passion of 7s, as referred to, is gluttony. And it goes beyond the overindulgence in food and drink, but refers more to an insatiable, it means it can't be satisfied, an insatiable desire for new experiences, more options, and increased stimulation or stimuli around them. And so when things become boring or stable or still, well, I even gave it away. I'm a 7. And so notice when I said things become boring. Well, things may not be boring, but to a 7, it may feel boring because nothing new is happening or nothing novel is happening. And so that feels difficult for a 7. It feels like I've got to get out of here. Like I need to escape this. I need to change my environment, or I need to increase the level of excitement in my environment. So this gluttony is kind of like an underlying effort maybe to avoid feelings of discomfort or avoid feelings of pain, a fear of missing out, dissatisfaction with the way things are, a fear of being trapped in emotional pain, or trapped geographically, like trapped in an office building, or trapped in a classroom, or trapped in a difficult relationship, or trapped with somebody who needs a lot of nurturing, which is ironic because 7s often need a lot of nurturing themselves, but may feel overwhelmed if the person they're with needs constant attention or hand-holding or nurturing. Anything that puts limits on their experiences, anything that is negative, even like doing something fun, but being around people who are being negative could be too much. You might see the 7 either becoming negative themselves or teleporting away from this group because they can't be around all that kind of negativity. So seeking out stimulating activities, and it can depend on the 7 what that is. It could be anything from casinos and, bars and that kind of thing, or it could be, just needing to go hiking or kayaking or four-wheeling or jet skis or whatever it is. I've got to get away from this. This feels uncomfortable. And it can even be really great things. Like you could be at a picnic on the beach, but while everybody else is relaxing or resting, that 7 is pacing back and forth. We should go paragliding. We should, go surfing or body surfing or anything else, but just sitting here can feel, a little bit restraining. So a constant search for gratification can lead to a certain level of emptiness and a lack of fulfillment in life. As you're constantly moving from one thing to the next or from one experience to the next, sampling, a lot of sampling, but never really giving yourself fully to anything or maybe even any person in your life. So I have a quote here from Alan Watts, and he says, "We cannot be more sensitive to pleasure without also becoming more sensitive to pain." And so as 7s seek out pleasure, they kind of want to extract it away from all of the rest of the emotional experiences in life and have a hard time maybe with relationships, because relationships are not just pleasurable, but there's also in every relationship going to be some level of difficulty or challenge or dissatisfaction. And so 7s might have a tendency to jump around in life without ever really remaining stable or focused long term. So constantly moving. Think about it like this. If you want to have a great career, it's probably going to take some level of loyalty, which is interesting that 6 is right next to 7. The loyalist is right next to 7 because 7s need to borrow a lot from that sense of loyalty of 6s. But imagine that you wanted to have a great career in life. Yeah, you probably do need to change jobs a few times in order to land that perfect fit for you. But once you find that position, if you really want to, earn a good income or earn a good living, you probably have to stay with that corporation for a while. And this could be difficult for a 7, even when they like their job or they like the work. Just remaining still and stable can feel problematic to 7s. They're thinking to themselves, yeah, it's a great job. Yeah, it's a lot of opportunity. But why am I not living in Texas right now? Why am I not living in California? Why am I not living in New York? Why am I not living in Florida? I'm getting tired of living in Iowa. I'm getting tired of living in Indiana. And this sense of feeling this need to move on, or the grass is greener on the other side, could really, in some ways, end up long-term stifling or destabilizing a 7 and their family and bringing about the very thing you don't want, which is pain and misery in life. Constantly moving every 2 years is probably not a good way to enjoy your life. And yet, what does a 7 want? To enjoy their life. But I can't enjoy it here. I need to move there. So they move and they move and they move and they change jobs and they change maybe relationships and change marriages and change families and then change jobs again. And at the end of this, you might ask yourself, is this really the best experience? Is this really the best way to achieve a happy experience in life? And probably the answer is no. But in the moment, it's hard for 7s to see that. They just know that they feel uncomfortable where they are. Okay, I don't know if I'm making sense to you guys. I'm trying to unpack as best as I can this 7 mindset. Because people look at 7s and they're like, oh, I wish I was a 7. 7s are always so upbeat and happy. Not always the case. It's not always the case. Look, I'm a 7 and I work with a lot of 7s. In my coaching business, and what I find is 7s can sometimes be very melancholy and very depressed, even when you might say there's no real problem. I mean, there's no real problem in their life except that they're not feeling happy or they're not feeling excited. And when I don't feel excited or I don't feel happy about my job, how can I go to my job? How can I go to my job if I don't feel excited about it? Maybe I need to quit this job and change jobs or change careers and maybe go back to school and change, the whole trajectory of my life because I don't feel excited and that feels like a problem to me. And you might just realize like a lot of people don't feel excited. I mean, work is work, right? I mean, work is not always exciting. A lot of people think you just go to work, you do your job, you come home, you have a life. And you just endure your time at work. But that could feel very difficult for a 7 to just feel trapped and stuck in a job they don't like or don't feel excited about. Even just, having a Saturday come and go and not having anything to do or not having anything to be excited about could feel like there's a problem. Like there's this unrest in your heart that says, something's wrong, something's wrong. Well, what's wrong? We don't have anything to do. I don't have anything to be excited about. So I'm going to find something. I'm going to scan online. I'm going to scan, the events page on Facebook. I'm going to scan whatever to try to find where am I going to spend the day? Because I can't sit here. I can't just sit here and be a person. I can't just sit here and relax. No, I've got to find something to fill my mind up with or to rev my mind up on some kind of information. I've got to find some experience. I've got to find some group of people or something. I can't just sit here and be in this place. This could create relationship problems, as you might imagine. The people that you're in a relationship with might think, why are you never satisfied? Why are you never satisfied? My sin is gluttony. Why are you never satisfied? That's the whole point of being a 7, is that there's this challenge of finding satisfaction in life. Like Mick Jagger said years ago, I can't get no satisfaction. And so 7s will justify, the defense strategy of 7s is justification, because they will justify whatever it costs or whatever time it takes away from the family or away from responsibilities in life in order to seek out what they think is going to satisfy them or gratify them or nurture them, only to realize that once they have it, they don't feel all that satisfied. Let me read this quote from Epicurus. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, but one of the names for 7s is the Epicurean. I think it's kind of, in some ways, like differentiated from Stoics. When I think of Stoics, I think of 5s, like need less, be unaffected by life around you, remain stoic. And then sort of the alternate of that, the alternate Greek philosophy to that, in my mind, I know I'm probably, making this too simple, too simplistic. There's going to be some 5s posting, Epicureanism is not the opposite of Stoicism, I'm sure. But the founder of the Epicurean school of thought, one of the names of 7s, which is kind of like to avoid pain and to test yourself with as much pleasure as possible, Epicurus, this is something he said: do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not. Remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for. Now, I don't know if Epicurus was a 7, but a lot of what he says sounds very 7-ish, almost like that 7 line to 5, much like Solomon. I don't know that Solomon was a 7, but he sounds like a 7. When you read the book of Ecclesiastes, it sounds like a 7, who's very frustrated that I've tested myself with work, I've tested myself with pleasure, I've tested myself with wine, women, and song, and yet I find all of it feels, not satisfying. It feels meaningless or vanity. And so here Epicurus says, be careful that you don't spoil what you have in life because you're so focused on what you don't have in life. Remember, all these things that you have, all these wonderful guitars and all these wonderful, things that you've acquired and accumulated in life, they at one time were the object of your desire. And now that you have them, you might have a tendency to minimize them and not really be grateful. And really, gratitude is kind of the weapon, to use against this sense of insatiable desire. Looking around and looking at all the things you have and saying, wow, I'm so grateful that I have all these books. I'm so grateful that I have all these guitars. I'm so grateful that I have all these friends. I'm so grateful to live in this beautiful place. Grateful for my marriage. Grateful. And that's really strikes at the heart of this gluttonous need for more. I can't be happy because what I need is outside of me. And when that's your sin, no matter how much you acquire, there's always more that's outside of you. And yet, what sevens do often is they collect all of these experiences and collect all of these objects in their life, and then they look at all of this collection and sometimes disdain it. Like, why did I need all of that? I'm just going to get rid of all of it. And they can seem very generous. At times, sevens can seem very generous and are very generous. But I think sometimes what it has to do with is I've amassed all of this stuff that hasn't really satisfied me, and now I'm just going to kind of detox, get rid of all this, because now my attention is on some new hobby or some new interest, and now I'm acquiring as much as I can in that area. Maybe it's like electric bikes. I haven't got an electric bike, but maybe one day, I don't know. But I want to learn everything I can about them. I want to buy one, and then my mind goes to one I don't have, and next thing you know, it's like you just switch the focus of your objects. But notice that underlying problem is the same, of needing something more, a fear of missing out, acquiring something else. And what you may realize, it's not really guitars that you love, it's acquiring new stuff that you love. It's that excitement of opening a new present or bringing home a new item and reading the manual or looking at the manual, putting it together, experiencing it, something brand new, a new electronic, and then after a while that excitement goes away. And it's kind of like every morning should be Christmas morning. New stuff coming in the mail to look at, to experience, and then tomorrow something else comes, and open that and smell that and taste that and experience that. Sampling. But 100 candles or 100 bottles of perfume or 100 anything is one way to experience something, but another way to experience is to find one you love and just build memories with the one you love. And sevens will most of the time feel like sampling is a better experience. But you got to challenge yourself. Is it really? Is it really always a better experience to sample careers? Is it really always the better experience to sample relationships or marriages? Is it really always a better experience to sample rather than to own and purchase and love the things you have? Maybe it's better to have one guitar you love than 10 guitars that you kind of play with. When you think about, for example, great musicians, like I think of Eddie Van Halen, who passed away recently, you tend to associate with him one guitar. Now, I know he played more than that, but just think like B.B. King and Eric Clapton. And you tend to think of these people as playing one signature guitar that they become really good at. And, you can already see what's going to happen here. When you're constantly sampling, you become a generalist, but sort of a master of nothing. And what do you love so much that you're going to master it? What do you love so much that you're going to spend a lot of time with it? That could be a real challenging thought for a question. So for growth, for type 7s, they might benefit, of course, we might benefit from allowing ourselves to feel the full spectrum of emotions, like not trying to run away from pain, maybe even like sitting there and listening to that opening scene from the movie Up and just letting yourself, cry a few tears and as you think about the passing of time and people that you've loved who've passed on, and allowing yourself to fully experience difficult emotions, recognizing it's not going to kill you, you're going to be okay. That true happiness and contentment often come from a more balanced life or a more balanced experience of life, including the acceptance of pain, and recognizing that these things are integral parts of the human experience. Like if you're going to be married, you're going to have pain. If you're going to have kids, you're going to have challenges. You're going to have difficult times. But that's all a part of what it means to this experience of being human. So anything that encourages mindfulness or presence, there's a reason why my tagline is be present to life, because it's so difficult. It's so difficult for me to be present to life sometimes, because I can always think about what could make this better, or what else we could do, or why are we doing this? And to really pause and slow down and take a breath and experience the present. 7s, 8s, and 3s are all in the assertive group, and the assertive group tends to be future oriented. But really, happiness can only be had in the present. And so we spend so much time focused on the future that it's hard for us to really be present in the moment. So you're planning your vacation, but then when the vacation comes, it's hard for you to really relax and enjoy the vacation because you're so busy thinking about what are we going to do next, or what are we going to do tomorrow? Because I can't be bored. Think of it like that. I can't be bored. And I wonder how much of our money gets spent. I wonder how much of our time and energy gets spent doing things just simply because we can't be bored. I mean, think about it like this. Do you really love what you do? Do you really love your hobbies? Do you really love playing golf? Do you really love, hiking in the woods? Or do you just hate being bored? What else would I do? I would just sit here and be bored, and that's unacceptable. So I've got to buy more fishing poles and buy a boat and go fishing. And because what else would I do? I would just sit here and be bored? That's not acceptable. And when you think about it, that is a good motivation for doing something in life, but you may find yourself doing things that are not the most beneficial just simply because I can't be bored. So anything that helps us be more mindful, more grounded, more present, think walking, prayer, meditation, yoga, all those kinds of things that help us, or just making yourself sit still, going out and sitting under a tree or sitting by a pool. And as you feel this feeling of unrest, to just recognize that it's a feeling, and it doesn't have to move you away from what you're doing right now or away from the people that are surrounding you. So learning to sit still, learning to sit with discomfort. In fact, if you did that, people would say, wow, Tommy's really matured. He's able to sit still. He's raising his hands when he has questions. He's not squirming and fidgeting in his seat. He's really matured. And I think maturity is just learning to push back on these impulses when they're not working for you. And they're not always working for you. Yes, they can help you be very creative and help you synthesize many things and have lots of brain waves or brainstorms, but sometimes these impulses could move you away from remaining steady and focused and constant in life. Okay, so that since you have to pursue new experiences, what about meaningful experiences? Maybe if we just substituted instead of new and novel experiences to deep, rich, and meaningful experiences, we might develop a greater sense of commitment and depth, and lead to greater satisfaction in our lives and a more full and balanced life. So rather than just new and stimulating experiences. Okay, so I was thinking about what should you say if you were talking to a 7? So you're probably watching this like, all right, Tom, so my husband's a 7 or my wife's a 7. Oh my gosh, please help me. Okay, what do you say to a 7 to challenge them in a thoughtful way? Well, let's talk about what you don't say. Maybe what you don't say. Don't start with things like this. Just stop doing it. Just stop. Why do you always have to be, run all the time? You just never can relax. You never can. Notice that negativity. 7s abhor, by and large, we abhor negativity. So when you lead with negativity, we're already going to shut down and say, I'm not talking to this person. I just can't be around this negative energy. So be careful about just stop, right? Or you always need too much. I don't know that you can have too much fun. Remember that song, too much fun, a girl is too pretty, So this can come off as judgmental and make sevens, of course, feel very criticized and misunderstood. Or why can't you just be happy with what you have? That's kind of the whole problem of gluttony, isn't it? I mean, when you think about defining gluttony, why can't you be happy with what you already have? Isn't that right at the heart of gluttony? And okay, well, if you're a 1, why do you always have to get upset? Why do you always have to see the negative? Why do you always have to be critical? Okay, or if you're a 3, why do you always have to set goals? Why do you always have to push yourself? Why do you always have to accomplish more than everybody else? Why do you always have to be the best? Why can't you just settle for... So you can see, like, every one of us has got our major problem, and gluttony is a real problem, and it feels real to your 7 child or your 7 parent or whoever it is in your life. And when you say, why can't you just be happy with what you have? That sounds really simple when your sin is not gluttony. But when your sin is gluttony, that's the whole problem, is it's hard to be satisfied with what you have. So this could be perceived as dismissive of the 7's feelings of restlessness and their genuine desire to be happy. Believe me, that's what 7s want, is to be happy and content. Why can't you just be happy with what you have? I don't know. That's my whole problem. I'm not saying it makes sense. So we're just trying to understand each other, right? So that we can be more compassionate with one another. Number 4, let me pause right here and say, this is a real problem. You might look at it like, gosh, that's such a silly problem. I mean, I'm a 6, and my problem is fear, and that's legitimate because there's murderers out there on the streets. There's, all kinds of dangers and car accidents, and that's a legitimate problem. Getting run over by a bus, that's a real problem. And I can't argue with that. I just want you to realize that the stuff that 7s feels legitimate to them. You might look at it and be like, oh gosh, how silly is this? You have 7 guitars and you want to buy a new one? You have the finest, you have a Fender Stratocaster, you have a Fender Telecaster, you have a Gibson Les Paul. Why would you want to spend $400 on some off-brand guitar that you don't need? Can't you just be satisfied with what you have? I want you to realize, like, as silly as this might sound to you, you might not feel like a legitimate problem. In your 7s, the person you love, in their mind, it feels like a real thing. And it feels like a real thing because look at them going off and spending more money they don't have on stuff they don't need. And you might say, I can't be around this. This is too selfish, or this is too... And then there's all kinds of damage that can happen in their life because of being so self-referencing and not being satisfied with what they have. And then there's all kinds of pain that, could be a byproduct of that sort of lifestyle that they have to then escape and outrun. And you might say it like this. If you live with a 7, this is probably what you're having a hard time putting into words. My 7 that I love is making themselves miserable, trying to make themselves happy. The 7 that I love, my husband, my wife, my kid, I see them from this vantage point of not being a 7, watching them, how they spend their time, their money, their energy, and I see themselves exhausting themselves and the people around them that are trying to love them. I see them exhausting themselves and their resources, ultimately making themselves miserable, chasing after happiness. They so desperately want to chase after enjoyment and excitement and happiness that they end up making themselves very exhausted and tired, cranky and miserable. That may be what you're trying to put into words as you experience living with a 7. Okay, you're just escaping from your problems. Yes! Okay, what's wrong with that? That's the way a 7 is going to think is, they're going to justify that I've taken care of my problems. And why would you not want to escape from your problems? I mean, isn't that Jimmy Buffett's whole message? And I think Jimmy Buffett was probably a 7. If he wasn't a 7, he was a 9. I think he was a 7. And isn't that kind of the whole thing of like, it's 5 o'clock somewhere? I'm going to get away from my problems. I need a break. I'm sick and tired of being cooped up and locked in, and I don't want that much organization in my life. I need to get away from this, and I need to have a good time. I think of that song from Poison, Looking for Nothing But a Good Time. That is the 7 heartbeat in a song. Ain't looking for nothing but a good time. I'm tired of working. I've been working all week and at a job I hate, and I feel trapped and stuck, and now it's Friday and I'm gone. I'm out of here. Chasing after something. Now, I always say this, that every type in their average health or unhealth chases after the very thing they bring and give away to others. And that's such an interesting thought. 7s are chasing after excitement. They're chasing after novelty. They're chasing after happiness. They're chasing after inspiration. Reading books so they have something to talk about, reading information, because what am I going to do? Sit here and think? Am I just going to sit here and be bored? I can't do that. So I'm chasing after information. I'm chasing after experiences. I'm chasing after happiness. Think about it like this. When 7s are doing well, what do they give everybody? Happiness, excitement, inspiration. You bring the very thing that you're chasing. You bring it in your health and you chase it in your unhealth. Everybody else is fine with less. You should be thankful. Ooh, right? Everybody else is fine with less. And you'll say, I don't know. There's something wrong with me. I don't know why I need more. So comparisons with everybody else, you're not going to get the result. And let me say that all of these things may be right. Just stop doing it. You always need too much. Why can't you be happy with what you have? You're escaping from your problems. Everybody else is fine with it. I'm not saying that any of those things are incorrect. I'm just saying they're not the best strategy to help your 7. It's going to come across as judgmental. It's going to come across as correcting. And it's going to come across as negative, none of which a 7 is going to be open to when they're in that state of anxiety of, I've got to get more, I've got to have more. The 7's not going to listen to this and go, oh, wow, you brought up a good point. Yeah, I guess I'll stop. It's just not a good strategy. Here's some things you might say instead. You might encourage mindfulness. What is that? Well, take a second. I know that you're feeling anxious right now, and I know that you want to hurry off and buy this thing, but why don't you take a second and reflect on what you're feeling and decide whether you want to act on this impulse or whether this impulse could pass you by and you could move on with your day. Sometimes pausing to really tune into what you need. Let me say it like this. Do you really want this thing that you're about to buy, or do you just hate not having something new? Do you really love this thing that you're about to buy or this vacation you're about to go on? Do you really need to do this? Or do you just hate the fact of not having something to do? Are you hungry or are you bored? Okay, that's basically what I'm saying is, are you legitimately hungry or are you just bored? Do you legitimately love this TV show and the characters that are on it? Or do you just not want to sit there not doing something? Number 2 is maybe focus on fulfillment. Ask your 7, what is it in life that really makes you happy? What is it that you really love? Beyond the immediate pleasure, like where do you find deep satisfaction in life? What is the most meaningful to you? Or are you just seeking out constant stimulation? Like quality over quantity. What brings you the most quality of enjoyment in life? Number 3 is set more meaningful goals in life. What if you set a goal that excites you, but also challenges you long term to stay more engaged and focused in a more sustained way? It could be a project or a skill you want to master, like playing guitar or construction, building a house or something. Rather than just, I feel like I've mastered it enough that I can move on. What if you really stayed with this and really learned all the nuances? Is there anything in your life that you've become a master of? Because you're not going to become a master jumping from one thing to the next. I play guitar, and then I play piano, and then I play drums, then I play... I think about Roy Clark. There are some people, and he's probably a 7 too, there are some people out there that can master tons of instruments, but most of us... Okay, number 4, promote balance in life. It might be helpful to balance your pursuits with things that ground you, like I said, walking, deep conversations, meditation, prayer, spending time in nature, those kinds of things. And then number 5, encourage your 7 to set their own healthy limits or their own healthy boundaries. Like, okay, so you have this hobby. You're collecting hat pins, like little pins that go in your hat. Seems like a ridiculous thing, right? So you're collecting hat pins, and everywhere you go, you're looking at flea markets, and you're going to Disney, and you're finding all these cool pins, right? Why don't you set an amount that you think is okay to spend without feeling guilty or feeling like you're robbing your family? So set that amount, and maybe they'll say, okay, $200 a month. Okay, now if you're not a 7, that's going to sound extreme. $200 a month on hat pins? Oh my goodness, this is so ridiculous. Okay, but be proud of the 7 for setting some kind of limit and trying to stick within that limit. Okay, so you can feel good about spending $200 a month on this hobby. Because, gluttony, it just pulls you further than you want to go. It pulls you so far down this road. And before you know it, you've spent $1,000. You've robbed your family of $1,000 for what? Hat pins? That eventually, once you get a pile of them and you get frustrated that you have so many of these things, you don't even like them anymore, you're going to give them all away or sell them all on eBay for $100. So set some healthy boundaries and limits so that you can enjoy the sampling, you can enjoy the new experiences, but so that it doesn't become detrimental to your life, to your finances, and to your relationships. Okay, I've got a couple of quotes for you, and then we're done. Here's a quote from Dick Van Dyke, who I think is a 7. You go, who's Dick Van Dyke? Well, if you're under 30 or 40, you probably don't know who Dick Van Dyke is. But anyway, this is something he says. The key to life is just being a happy person, and happiness will bring you success. And that, folks, that's the way a 7 thinks. If I want to do better at something, I need to get excited about it. Let's get excited about it. Come on, get yourself motivated, get yourself excited about it. And once you're excited about it, it's going to improve. That's often the way 7s think. It's like, if I can't get excited about this, I probably need to quit. So I need to get myself excited about something. And notice he says, focus on becoming happy, and when you're happy, you'll be successful. And this is something else Dick Van Dyke said. You don't have to be young to find joy in life. As long as you can find something to laugh about, you're okay. Now, I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying, if you want to understand the 7 mindset, this is the kind of people you need to look at. Jack Black, Dick Van Dyke, Robin Williams, Jim Carrey. This is the 7 mindset. Michael Scott from The Office. I one time posted a thing on Facebook about Michael Scott being a 7. I had people like, no, he's a 2. He's a 2. I think he's a 7. All right, and here's something he says. You only live once? False. You live every day. You only die once. I don't know why I put that in there. I just liked it. Okay, and here's one Bible verse for you. And you say, Bible? Are you serious? You're going to bring up the Bible? Well, after all, each one of these is a sin. You might say a sin against 2, right? Now, other people say passion, the passion of each type. But, it's a sin. And here's a Bible verse that I think might be helpful for you. Proverbs 25, verse 16 says, if you find honey, eat just enough. Too much of it, and you will vomit. Now, I think Solomon is probably a 7. Can't prove it, but I think a lot of what he writes is very 7-ish, like 7 line to 5, right? And listen to that verse again. If you find honey, eat just enough of it. Too much of it, and you will vomit. What's the principle there? Enjoy life. Enjoy it. You found honey? Have some honey. Enjoy life. Relax. Have a good time. Laugh. Sample all of these wonderful things, these beautiful things in life. Life can be so beautiful. Sample all these beautiful things. But learn to put some limitations on yourself, because life without limits can end up very limiting. If you don't put limits on yourself, other people will. And, your health will put limits on you. So if we can learn to balance a little more in life, then maybe things could move a little better for us in life. All right, thank you guys for checking out this video. I hope it's helpful to you. And like I said, reach out to me. I'd love to work with you. My goal for you is that you live the most fulfilled, happy, joyful experience possible. That your relationships are filled with happiness and joy, satisfaction, fulfillment. If I can help you through your chaos, we'll help each other. All right, guys. Thank you. And as always, be present to life. I'll see you next time.